Hello, everyone. My name is Zachary Basil, and first, thank you for taking the time to listen to my signature assignment today. My topic is helping students make the right choices in the face of rapidly rising college tuition rates. First, let's look at an agenda so you know what we're going to talk about. First, we'll talk about the problem. Then, we'll talk about potential solutions to the problem. After that, we'll take a look at the workshop series I developed that I think will help to solve the problem. As a part of that, we'll look at an overview, then we'll look at activities, and then finally I'll talk about my expectation and outcomes for students. And then you'll see references and the presentation will be over. All right, so let's talk about the problem first. As we all know, college has become extremely expensive. And as we all know, college loan debt in the United States has ballooned to just an unbelievable amount over the past few decades. But some of you might not realize just how much more expensive it has become than everything else. So, this brings me to the College Board, which releases a report on the trends in pricing in higher education every year. They found tuition and fees for higher education have shown a 300% increase over 30 years. That is significantly outpacing inflation. If you take a look at the chart on the right, that's going to illustrate that for you perfectly. If you look at a public four-year institution as an example, you'll see it's gone up over 3 times. And this is in 2017 dollars, by the way. It's obviously a very big problem. The first thing it does is create a higher student loan debt for everybody but the very few who are able to pay for it out of pocket. It also reduces accessibility to education for minorities and poor students. So, when they realize it starts to become too expensive for them to be able to pay for, or it's just not worth it for them anymore to have all of that debt, they're just going to decide, rather than go to get more education, no, I'm just going to forgo it altogether and just not deal with it. This is going to perpetuate the growing gap between the rich and the poor. The poor will start to resent the rich. It will also create an increasing divide in our country between those who have and those who do not. While some of the poor may not even be able to go to education at all, the rich won't even have to pay for loans. They may be able to pay for it out of pocket completely. And for those in the middle, and for those poor who can afford to take out loans and go to university, they might be strapped with debt for their entire careers, if not for their entire lives. This is going to make things like getting married, buying a car, buying a house, very, very difficult, especially compared to their rich counterparts who don't have to deal with that problem, thus creating a larger gap and a larger divide, which we certainly do not need in the US, especially at these times. So, let's take a look at some solutions to the problem. One of the first solutions that comes to mind is increased student aid. So one thing that could be done is that we could find more funding for students, whether that's through the government, whether that's through private individuals or organizations, whether that's from the institutions themselves, trying to find more funds for these students who desperately need it. Any of that will most certainly help. Another solution is increased financial literacy for all stakeholders. So for parents, students, advisors, administrators, educators, everybody. And everybody can work together to create the best pathway for their future so that they can have a successful life. and drag themselves out of poverty. As a part of that, there are potential alternatives that could be considered, such as technical schools. Students could go get a trade, become an electrician, truck driver, etc. They could go to a community college instead of a traditional college, which community college is a lot cheaper. May not be as good of an education, but it could still help them get to where they need to go. Finally, let's just try to make everybody more culturally proficient and equitable, especially administrators and advisors, so that everybody can understand each other better and try to come to more suitable solutions for those who really, really need it. Now, let's talk about the workshop series. First, let's look at the overview. All right, so the workshop I've created, it focuses on training administrators, advisors, and coordinators on helping disadvantaged students. It's 3 workshops and it's 2 hours each workshop. The first workshop, I will be working to expose inequities in education by feeding some of the existing studies and literature, as well as videos and evidence to the class. And we will also be working on developing strategies to achieve equity and cultural proficiency. In order to do that, I'm going to share with groups of students particular strategies so that they can then look at them, understand them, summarize them, and then present them to everybody else in the workshop, what they are, so that we can all kind of get a better understanding of how to be more equitable and how to be more culturally proficient. Excuse me. In the second workshop, I will be teaching my students advising strategies, or rather, I will be bringing in an expert who is able to teach them financial advising strategies that they are able to use to help their students. And in doing so, we will then try to apply that knowledge that we've learned by using a case study in which I will pair students together, and each pair of students will get a case study in which one will be taking the role of an advisor and one will be taking the role of a student. The advisor will then try to use some of the strategies that were just learned and try to assist the struggling student. This will allow them to get to practice some of their strategies. In the third workshop, the pairs will then present their case studies to the class. They will also talk to the class about what their outcomes were for the case study. What were their solutions for the case study? And then the class will discuss those solutions and case studies and decide whether or not they think those are applicable solutions for each case study. In the end, there will be a written reflection, and each student will write about their learning experience and what they felt about the workshop. Okay, activities. There will be informational lectures, such as the financial advisor in the second workshop, as well as the director of the workshop, who will discuss cultural proficiency and being equitable. There will be a pair case study. There will be discussions. There will be a reflection. And there will be a Q&A session at the end of the entire workshop series where participants can ask the director anything that they're curious about or did not understand. All right, so my expectation and outcomes. I expect participants will be more culturally proficient and equitable in their interactions with students. I expect that participants will be aware of available resources to help students pay fees. I also expect participants will be able to advise students and parents on realistic pathways to graduation, a career, and paying off debt. All right, that brings us to the reference page, and that also brings us to the end of our presentation. I hope that you've enjoyed it, and I'm looking forward to hearing what you have to say. All right, have a good day. Thank you again.